sure. All right. Excellent. Hello and welcome. Welcome back. This is going to be a video just talking about builds and stuff for Loki and Warframe. Could be playstyles, interesting optimization, or just other stuff that you can do with this Warframe that might be fun or useful to you. We're just going to talk about that stuff for the next couple of hours. As always, the YouTube version of this has a table of contents, so you can jump around if you want to. I am going to go over even things as simple as the Warframe's base abilities. A surprising number of people don't read those and then aren't sure what to do with the frame, that's totally fine. I get it. But we should definitely start there. And so we shall. On Twitch, I'm going to be posting the Twitch archive Parley form. If you want to submit questions that I'll answer during the break the next time I stream on a Thursday, you can do that there. Send out the notification on Discord, and away we go. A couple little hellos and such, and then we'll be on our way. Asymptomatic, welcome back. How you doing? What's up? It's good to be doing these again. We stopped doing these for a little while because I wasn't really sure. I felt like I was behind on a lot of stuff in Warframe. There's a lot of tools in the game that I wanted to have before I did more of these. I changed my mind about some of them, and I also wasn't feeling like it was as good as it could be. I have had some different philosophy changes in the past little while, and so I'm happy we stopped for a bit, but I have different stuff I want to highlight now. Mostly, yeah, more playstyle things. It's not useful in most games that give you this many options to heavily focus on just what's effective. It can be fun to do that. I think it's fun to blend doing that with focusing on what you want. Here's what I want, and here's what I, need to get things done in a timely manner in the game. How can I make a build that does both? Like, I really like that. That's generally what I enjoy. A lot of people like one or the other. That's totally fine too, of course. But I feel like I haven't embraced playstyle and preference as much as I could, and have focused a little bit more on the optimization or implications for the rest of the game stuff, which makes sense because it's kind of more objective. This frame does or does not have a unique ability, for example, in Warframe. But I don't know. I also just think you can get that information elsewhere. So it's not the end of the world to focus on, covering other stuff a little bit more. And it's more true to life. Most people care about those things. They care about preference. That's why they're making a build that fits their taste. So yeah, I'm very excited to do that. Welcome a few people back, and away we shall go. Yeah, just one last kind of disclaimer. If you were following this series for Warframe, of covering each frame in turn and talking about builds and playstyle stuff for them, you may note that we actually did already cover Loki, and we actually already covered the frame after Loki as well, but I'm redoing them because, again, I'm approaching the series a little bit differently. One thing that I'm approaching differently is we're not going to worry too much about getting gameplay in with the frame. I'm going to allow there to be a stream the week after where we can play the frame a bit. And a lot of the time there will be nothing of note to demonstrate gameplay wise, or we will demonstrate it in the simulacrum to show a thing about the build. So I just don't think that it's worth breaking our backs over including that in these. But I will link gameplay of that when it happens at the end of this. So if you're watching this as a YouTube archive and we do a Loki gameplay stream, I'll include that. It probably won't be a public video on the Bootleg Builds YouTube channel, just because I don't think it's useful as a public video. It would be useful for people who watched this and then wanted to see some gameplay of it, right? And it doesn't matter if it gets a lot of views. This isn't my primary channel, and I'm not focused on getting a lot of views anyway, primarily. So yeah, it doesn't matter. So that's where you'll find that linked in these videos. There will often be gameplay if I have it. Obviously, all that stuff's in the description too. Dinsoro, welcome back. What's going on? And Ace, you said you're tired. Kind of nice to feel needed at work, but still a lot of mental juggling. Like there's a printer on site that only I know how works and can refill without the printer erroring out. Yeah, that can be good and bad, right? There's some reassurance that people can use your help, but sometimes the reason they need your help is something you don't always want to be the one to do. You are not literally a printer. Job security TM is a way you could put it. Pistol Whip, welcome back. Vamper, welcome back. What's up? You said you're off work today and you're happy it's Loki week. I love playing Loki. I'm a fan of Loki as well. Loki is a frame that I spent a lot of time with early in my time playing Warframe. Loki is very, very often cited as being kind of power crept, which I don't think is inaccurate. I just feel like it isn't the entire story. I feel like the idea of power creep in a game like Warframe is a little bit more complicated. A frame being strictly worse than another frame in terms of gameplay ability, I mean, doesn't really exist anyway, but imagining that it did, imagining that you felt like there was a frame that was a strictly worse version of another, in a game with really meaningful build options and balance calibrated so you can pick what you want, it often just doesn't matter that the frame is, you know, I suppose worse, but still perfectly adequate, right? And I think that's true of Loki. The things that are worse, they're sure not bad, you know. And so I think that's a whole thing about Loki, and he can be a refreshing change of pace. He has very powerful tools, all in one place that a lot of frames don't have. They certainly aren't common tools. It's just up for questioning whether you really need them that badly. Do you really need stealth that bad in Warframe in 2023? It's a little bit, I don't know. But anyway, Bionic Me and Synthrone, welcome back. Poopkins, welcome back. Synthrone, you said, I've recently been thinking that Warframe has a lot of forms of horizontal ways to get power. That is, ways to get more options that aren't necessarily more powerful than each other, whilst I seek vertical power so I can start conquering Steel Path and etc. Well, I think that the twist with a game like Warframe is that there's often, for a while, the player wants vertical power progression. They want to get more powerful, not powerful in different ways. But there comes a point where, you know, like in 6 months, you will no longer gain anything from vertical power. And you might simply still want it. You might just find it a more fulfilling form of progression. But the game will get to a point where it says, okay, that's kind of enough. Now, what do you want? Do you want horizontal progression or do you want vertical progression? You could still clear some missions faster, I guess, if you kept progressing vertically, right? That's kind of true forever, I suppose. But there are definitely thresholds. You know, there's only so fast you're going to do a capture mission. And if it's already down to a minute, do you need it to be faster that badly? Like, for most people, the answer is no. Stuff like that. But it can be fun to just try to do it faster too. So, yeah, I think that's what a lot of games like this do. I don't think it necessarily is that the game does one or the other, and it doesn't. I would theorize that very few people literally don't care at all about like horizontal or vertical progression. Most games include valuing both of them, but yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to note about Warframe because it is a distinct thing about games like this. They often go through kind of phases of, you know, some horizontal progression at the end, but you care about vertical progression in the beginning because it just lets you get stuff done, or you literally can't do a thing until you vertically progress enough, and then it becomes kind of optional afterward. For example, I'm definitely at the point where getting a new powerful thing on my account does not benefit me objectively in any real way. It would just be another option I could choose. So I think it's a really interesting subject. Definitely relevant to Loki too. I think you made a good point about, yeah, like not necessarily more powerful options. That's certainly something Warframe has a lot of. On that note, yeah, that's a great segue to talking about Loki's abilities. So let's do that. Loki. So there's not a lot to say. This is a straightforward ability set, which I don't think is a bad place to be. His passive lets you wall latch for like a lot longer, 10 times longer than normal. There are some effects that trigger when you wall latch, but a lot of them trigger just by wall latching for an instant or, you know, like 1 second. Some of them it literally is for a split second, and then a few of them it's for 1 or 2 seconds. You don't need to wall latch for a long time to get many of those effects. Now, if I recall, there's a thing with the mods that make you take less damage while airborne. I think those work with this. Chat will weigh in on whether they think that works, but I believe that does work. I'm not sure you'd want to do that with Loki. He has pretty low base health and armor, pretty much as low as it gets, health and armor. But you certainly could. So yeah, I might be wrong and that doesn't work, but that's a thought. Again, I don't think it matters anyway, but Yeah, I don't know. Wall latching, it can be novel if you want to avoid your own explosions, I guess. Anyway, decoy. Decoy gives you the ability to make a decoy. This is welcome to Loki's abilities, where we have an ability called Decoy that makes a decoy. Invisibility, which, oh boy, you'll never guess what this one does. Switch Teleport and Radial Disarm. This is a frame where we don't even need to describe what the abilities do per se. The decoy is squishy, but it has a long duration. Invisibility has a moderate duration, but it can't be refreshed while it's active. You have to wait for it to be over before you cast it again. And it does give you a split-second animation where you can see Loki kind of do a gesture and go invisible. So it's a pretty straightforward, a very milquetoast invisibility ability. Switch Teleport. Yeah, it swaps you with a target. Because of Decoy, you can make something to swap to. If you don't have it, you can swap with allies or enemies. So between Decoy and Switch Teleport, you have a somewhat clunky, but relatively inexpensive energy-wise teleport, if you want it. That's pretty good. There's not a lot of frames that have something like that. It won't be super quick, but the range is really, really long on both abilities. So it should be quite usable. If you have a big tile or an open world space, you can teleport, just straight up teleport very far. That's good. That's good. And Radial Disarm. Yeah, it makes enemies in the area lose their weapons for forever? Or do they have to pick can they pick them up? The duration here you're seeing is from the augment. Loki's helmet ability is Decoy. Not a particularly amazing helmet ability on its own, but letting some warframes that can maybe defend the decoy better make a decoy that taunts enemies can have its applications. Certainly not the world's most exciting decoy ability. Like there's other games where having a taunt thing is, a lot better. But another thing for enemies to shoot is another thing for enemies to shoot. So, I guess. And certainly I do think that some frames might make better use of this than Loki does, if they can defend the target. Although there is a Switch Teleport augment that makes the target you swap with invulnerable for a while. That's good with Decoy too. Yeah, so Radial Disarm chat is confirming, Pumpkins and Vampires say, Radial Disarm is forever. Another thing I've seen people do is they'll do Radial Disarm and then wall latch to something, and enemies will just crowd around, below where you're wall latching to, which can be very favorable for area of effect weapons. It's just that this ability could be an ability that simply kills enemies, potentially. Having it be a way to make enemies harmless but not dead is kind of as good as killing them, but you could well just kill them. So that's a question for this ability. It's a powerful effect. In many cases, enemies not having a ranged weapon is the same as them being dead. They will end up dead, incidentally. But there are game modes where you want them dead sooner, like Interception, they're on a point or something, etc. In a survival mission, yeah, an enemy without a gun permanently is basically dead, as long as you're doing enough damage that they will incidentally die, soon. Not sure there's too much else to say. Chat has a couple of notes about Loki's a really old Warframe, so there's going to be lots of things from players like myself and some of you in chat who've just been in Warframe for a long time. The context of some of these abilities has changed, and these abilities haven't really been updated in a very long time. But Warframe sure has. I thought, Bionic Me, that was a good note. You said the Eximus rework has somewhat lessened the power of large-scale crowd control because Eximus enemies are not vulnerable to it. There will be enemies that still have guns in the area almost all of the time. That's something. On the other hand, Asymptomatic, you said the cost of picking up cast speed has gone down in a post-focus rework, post-Archon world. Not sure if that changes too much. The disorientation from Switch Teleport was always the main niggle for me. I actually feel that way too. This ability can be a little disorienting to use, but it often gets the job done. Indeed, Loki might wish to be casting abilities quite often. You could think of Loki as an illusionist spellcaster, and the ability to cast abilities quicker has become much easier to acquire in Warframe since Loki was first brought to our naive little minds. Natural talent is the classic one, of course, but we have a lot of other options now. You can get Madurai has a node that gives you casting speed as your Warframe, 50% cast speed. There are Archon shards which can give you cast speed. There may be a few other ways. So there definitely is much more availability for casting abilities quickly. If you want to do the decoy switch teleport thing, that may be less punishing than it used to be, because for very little opportunity cost, you can just get a lot of cast speed. Radial Disarm is pretty slow, so having a lot of cast speed for that is good. Big good for that one. Not sure I have too much else to say for this part. Other Loki ability stuff. Bionic Me, you said, you know, Eximus enemies are still susceptible to aggro priority stuff like decoy, I'm pretty sure. Indeed, you could make the decoy invulnerable with safeguard switch, that switch teleports augment, and Eximus enemies may still be tauntable by decoy. I'm not sure that's that great, but it ain't bad. Sure. And just because Radial Disarm doesn't affect Eximus enemies doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad against them, because it like singles them out. That's a way to think of it. Anyway, let's move on to just like basic build stuff. I like to keep this in the sort of overview section. I don't really have that much to say about decoy as a helmet ability, but we could talk about augments a little bit and basic build things. I often have an example build that is something I was using that we can talk about. But a couple of things about decoy. Savior decoy, I was always fond of this augment. You can hide your decoy somewhere, and if you die, you go back to it, and it's got a 1 minute cooldown or something. It might be 90 seconds between uses. The mod doesn't say that, but it has, you know, a modest cooldown. In some tiles, this can be really good. You can put the decoy on like a chandelier or something and just go about your business, and it's realistically not gonna die. And then if you get killed, you've got some insurance. I think that's really good for invisibility focused frames. If you survive with this and just forgo other survivability, having a little safety net that means in the once in a blue moon situation where you get hit by a bombard rocket or something and die, this makes you just not die. And remember, you've got overshields, shield gating as well. So it's not like you're just gonna straight up die if one thing hits you. You'd have to get hit a few times in a row when you are not targetable, which won't happen very often, but you may wish to have some insurance when it does. I don't know that dying is really that big a deal in Warframe, but this is an easy way to prevent that if you're interested. Deceptive Bond makes damage that you take gets sent to the decoy and vice versa, and the amount is increased by strength. It can go up to 100%, so you take no damage when you're shot and the decoy takes all the damage, and vice versa. Don't get too excited, because remember, the decoy sends damage to you, and Loki and the decoy are not that tanky. But there is some weird stuff you can do with this. I also talked about safeguard switch a little bit earlier. Yeah, this makes the target you swap with invulnerable. You can swap with a sortie defense target. You can swap with your decoy, which will then taunt enemies. You could swap with a pet and make it invulnerable for a time. You could swap with a hapless ally and make them angry because you moved them to a part of the map that they didn't want to be moved to. Don't troll people, be nice to each other. And then Radiating Disarm just gives them a peculiar radiation with duration thing. I don't know that this is really that amazing, but I happened to have it on. I actually like Savior Decoy, so I think I would use that instead. And then I personally think building a lot of range is the most obvious thing to do. It makes the teleport very long range. Radial Disarm covers a pretty big area, and having a moderate amount of duration makes it pretty easy to maintain invisibility. I don't necessarily think you need this, but a thing to consider would be just running the energy regeneration aura so that you get enough energy back to just always cast invisibility unless you're getting drained for energy. That's something simple. But yeah, overall, I think another note, Vampire, you said, I didn't think Loki was particularly unhappy to waste a mod slot on cast speed. Reasonable duration keeps you alive, and the rest of the abilities don't really scale. Indeed, especially with strength, the rest of the abilities don't like exactly scale that meaningfully. So I'm not sure you need to not run Natural Talent if you want the casting speed from a mod, but you don't need to not run Moderai Focus either if you want to think of it that way. I believe they do stack, don't they? We established on a previous stream that you can actually stack cast speed. It's just that you're not, it's you don't remove 50% of the cast time. You perform the cast 50% faster, like reload speed. 88% reload speed doesn't make your reload, only 12% of how long it was before. It just makes you do it 88% faster, almost twice as fast. It removes more like 50% of the time you spend reloading. Cast speed is the same way. So if you get 100% cast speed, that makes you cast twice as fast, not in 0 time, So, getting a lot of cast speed isn't as crazy as it sounds, but neither is it bad. I think we established that on a previous stream. So not a bad idea. But yeah, here's a simple thing I made. Rolling guard as some insurance, I don't think is a bad thing. But yeah, I don't have too much else to say, just reading back through some stuff. I see a few people mentioning the whole bit where, because Radial Disarm is a long animation and it locks you in an animation, you may wish to cast it while airborne so that you are physically moving while you cast it and also not meleeable as easily. Not a huge deal if you cast a bunch, but yeah. It might, and also I'm sensing that there isn't going to be that much to say with Loki, possibly. So I don't think it would be bad to just show the comparison with cast speed. That doesn't seem like a bad thing to do. So we'll just do that quickly. I do think Radial Disarm is really slow, so. So let's do that. And then, yeah, we'll probably just get into talking about weirder stuff you could do. There's really no particular reason I have the Tenet Envoy, but it's a lovely weapon. Why not keep it? Yeah, so this is what it looks like with no cast speed. Do I have Moderai on? Let's just take that off. Kind of slow. I mean, it's not that slow, but in Warframe, that's kind of slow. Again, Moderai has this focus node that does speed things up. 50% cast speed. So let's do that. Quite a bit faster. And then I'm also going to add Natural Talent, and you can see that. Yeah. So a lot faster. It's considerably faster. We do have speed drift as well. Someone mentioned that. Yeah, I never felt like speed drift was significant. 12% cast speed where our other sources are usually 50. I have never noticed this. I've used it plenty in the past, and I have never once noticed it was there. But it's 15%, excuse me. But yeah, it's not bad if you want more cast speed. It is close to a third of a natural talent in the Exilus slot, so that's not so bad. Loki does have high sprint speed. That might be something some people are interested in. I'm not the most excited by it, but it's certainly not bad. He does have exceptional sprint speed, so because it's going to multiply his base sprint speed, he will get more out of that. Do I have an arcane helmet on Loki? No. No. Why is his sprint speed so high? That's really fast. I probably have Amalgam Serration on here. Let's just take that off because I don't remember what the base is. 1.25 is still pretty fast. So yeah, it is that is exceptional sprint speed. I'm not sure how much that matters. I do feel like even with Loki, you're better off getting parkour velocity because getting a little bit makes you so fast. But sprint speed is definitely a thing that Loki is not the worst at. Hard to argue with that. And yeah, personally, I think it looks pretty, like you just kind of slap enemies from a distance and they have no weapons. Let's just demonstrate that in case somebody hasn't had the pleasure of seeing that happen before. It's pretty fun. Wham. Wham, why do you still have a gun? What's happening? Chat, save me. You get to see how quick the invisibility is as well. Real snappy if you have all the cast speed stuff. Why didn't that remove their guns? Is it because of the Xmas, I guess? Why does this heavy gunner have a weapon? You see that heavy gunner right there? What are you doing? My range is like 56 meters. Maybe it's because of one of the XMI. I don't know. Oh, the healers, the ancient healers are giving an overguard thing. Yep. Let's remove the Moa Xmas and the ancient. And I normally don't find these enemies that concerning, so I'm not that familiar with their mechanics. Oh, but yeah, there you go. You can see much more clearly. Everybody running around with a little pocket sheave. It's the sheave, if I remember correctly. Beautiful. I'm not sure there's like too much else to say. But yeah, that's a good place to start. Certainly if you just want to play Loki. I don't like to give just a build example and say copy this build. I'd rather use it as a discussion point, but certainly if you just want to use Loki's abilities and have them be effective, I don't think that's a bad way to do it. You know, Radial Disarm, if it's very fast like that, may encourage you to cast it a lot, and it does cost 100 energy still. We were kind of in that era where almost all of the Warframe 4th abilities cost 100 energy. So adding some efficiency isn't bad, and recall that the ability doesn't actually have a duration at base. Enemies are disarmed forever, so you can run Fleeting Expertise, the corrupted efficiency mod, that drops your duration, and you will still have a permanent disarm. Just keep in mind that will lower your stealth duration. But if you can recast it really quick and it doesn't cost much energy, maybe that doesn't really matter, you know? I definitely think Fleeting Expertise is great here. In fact, enough that I would consider going to get it. The only thing I don't like about Fleeting Expertise on Loki is Safeguard Switch. I think this is kind of the only exciting thing Loki does for me anyway. So I don't really want the duration is very short. It's only 3 seconds by default. And if I use the if I use narrow-minded, if I use the corrupted duration mod, I'm gonna make the range really low. Now it's got high base range. That might not be the end of the world. You could build more range. I don't know. I like this effect, I guess. So I don't think that's ideal. But indeed, Fleeting Expertise is not at all a bad idea. It doesn't really affect his other abilities much. Again, you have a short invisibility and you can't recast it, but if you can recast it but like that, then, you know, who cares? It is kind of nice to set and forget, though. Certainly, I had the experience as an early Warframe player where I was doing maybe a spy mission or something, or I was just getting used to the game, and I didn't want to have to worry about invisibility expiring while I wasn't paying attention. So you may wish to have long duration invisibility, even though you don't really need it. You could just recast it, but you might just feel very nice to not have to worry about it. I don't think that's bad either. Cool. I would say that's a good enough segue, as good as we're gonna get to talking about build stuff. So yeah, we can stroll back a little bit. Pingers, welcome back. Earlier you said if you were gonna remove invisibility, what might you put on Loki? Indeed, yeah. I mean, you can not be invisible all the time if that's not your jam. If you're not interested in that, I don't think that's nonsensical. I'm not sure which ability I'd want to remove necessarily. Decoy is tempting, but it's a nice combo with Switch Teleport and kind of Safeguard Switch. And then Radial Disarm is sort of one of the claims to fame, right? It's sort of like, why are you playing the Warframe? You might like Loki's appearance, some such, but one of the only mechanical things Loki does is radially disarm enemies. So it's hard to recommend taking that off. Kind of the same thing for me with Switch Teleport, but I know for some people maybe that would be the one. Looking at it like a stat puzzle, you could say, well, I can dump duration if I just, well, and then decoy doesn't have a long duration, but maybe you're not using it anyway, but then why not just get rid of decoy? So I don't know. I'm often looking at those two abilities. But there's definitely an argument that, yeah, Ace, you said Radial Disarm is the first in the bin for me. It feels expensive for what it does. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's 100 energy for an ability that just makes enemies not have a ranged weapon. If your Warframe was already tanky, this ability arguably does nothing. And so there's definitely the idea that you get rid of this because it doesn't really do anything, especially you're already invisible. But from a uniqueness perspective, I would imagine a lot of people don't want to do that. And you can use it as janky enemy grouping. Again, enemies will run toward you. You could well add an enemy grouping ability using the helmet system, so it's not like the only option. I also think it's worth mentioning that Loki might get some attention in the future. He hasn't received very many changes over Warframe's lifespan, so it feels worth noting that this might be a frame to watch for things to change going forward. Helmet abilities and mod stuff. Or weapons. We'd talk about whatever in this section. Pookins, you said, when we get to weapons, may I suggest Quasis? It's really cool to throw energy daggers from the shadows, and it brings some nostalgia from the Silent Redeemer days. Quasis. I'm not sure I remember the Quasis. Let's go take a look. Oh, this weapon. Ooh, what's up with the oversaturated purple? I don't know if I like that. The Quasis. Yeah, indeed. I think that a big draw for Loki interested folks might be a stealthy style of gameplay. So I don't think it's bad to mention as an option. Maybe you wish to play more subtle weapons. Indeed, I did spend a lot of my early time playing Warframe using a Redeemer with infinite ammo charge attacks to do stealth damage bullets on enemies. But that was like, 7 or 8 years ago at this point. So yeah, I can get behind that. Densora, you said, I have silence subsumed for that build. Interesting. Yeah, it's worth noting, I don't think I own this augment, but there is an augment for invisibility that makes your guns silent, right? That's what it does, chat. Densora, you said, I have a gameplay fantasy of disarm all the enemies, recreate the crazy 88 fight from Kill Bill. So max range, max efficiency, and positive-ish duration. Yeah, that sounds like mostly what I was recommending too. That makes sense. Again, I feel like that's a strong thing with Loki. Thematically, he feels like a solid enough Warframe. I think most complaints about him are likely going to be about the power level of some of these effects, which isn't necessarily a problem. You can just be invisible all the time and you can kill things with your guns. Hades and Pixel, welcome back. You said, holy cursor, holy giant mouse. I think it's useful. It points out what we're talking about. Definitely tell me if you feel strongly one way or another, you really like it or you really don't. I think relatively quickly, and we're gonna spend hours talking about, involved build stuff. I don't think it's so bad to have a big honkin' red cursor. Warframe's interface with a lot of different pieces may be a bit much for some people too. It's not like some other games we talk about builds in where it's pretty easy to follow, there's one build item on the screen. I think that it helps in a game like Warframe. It's cool that they gave that option. Sometimes it covers a lot of the text, but usually I feel like I can move it out of the way, and I'm just going to read what the thing does anyway most of the time. But let me know if you feel strongly one way or the other. I'm probably going to keep it for a little while. Yeah, for weapons, I don't have a ton to say at the moment, but silenced weapons, since you have a stealth ability, may be to your taste. I personally am very highly in favor of weapons that are already silenced, because there's usually not much cost to running a weapon that just already doesn't make noise. Does not a ruck make sound? It says alarming. The projectile this weapon fires is certainly alarming. It would be weird if that was quiet. But let's look at bows. Oh, how about Proboscis Cernos? Is that silent? That's a thought. And crossbows are silent. Although when enemies explode, I'll be honest, I'm not very experienced with stealth mechanics because I don't enjoy them. But just a thought. There are a lot of very powerful weapons that are already silenced. That being said, the way you would silence a weapon is also by using the weapon X list slot, so you might consider it just not a big deal. Like if we go to, I don't know, some arbitrary weapon, you're going to be using this slot to silence it, or you can use that slot to silence it with the appropriate weapon X list mod. So I guess on some weapons the cost isn't that high, but there's a lot of weapons where this slot there's something really good to put. So yeah. Oh yeah, there's some odd ones too. Baza Prime was a weapon I was trying to think of. Thank you, Ragnavar. That was something I was trying to bring up. There's some weapons that are kind of inexplicably silent. Baza Prime is a classic example. Yeah, just to say, it's not bad to just put a mod on the weapon and silence it. I really don't like Loki's silencing augment, but if you love having your weapons be silenced, it's a one-stop shop, I suppose. You could put the ability Silence, Banshee's helmet ability, on Loki. I just wanted to point out, if players like having a silenced weapon, that there are lots of already powerful, already silenced weapons. You don't necessarily need to silence it, and then you compromise on damage. There's weapons that do, top shelf amounts of damage that are already silent. Wow, this animation set is really, yeah, it's a lot. Just reading back through chat a little bit. Bionic Me, you said Banshee's silence is a bit redundant with Loki's invisibility as they largely do the same thing. To be blunt, I think if you cared about that kind of thing, you wouldn't play Loki at all. Which is why I recommended it. But I completely agree with you. I just personally think it probably doesn't matter. From a gameplay perspective, from is this Warframe effective perspective, I think Loki just isn't. You could look at this frame's value and put it among the lowest of the cast. That's what I would do. I don't think that matters, though. The lowest is still not a very low bar. And there's also a question about how you acquire the frames. So Loki, for example, you might consider easier or harder than another frame you get a stealth ability from. I don't know. I mean, for helmet abilities, usually when a Warframe doesn't have some really good thing they could do with another one, I don't see any incredible combos if you add an ability to Loki's kit. I don't. That doesn't mean there aren't any there. Usually what I think of is, if it's not going to be effective, is there anything that will just feel very unique, will give a unique gameplay experience? Maybe something with the kind of thing Loki's already doing? I don't know. Someone mentioned Firewalker earlier. I don't know why, but I have a thing to say about that. Yeah, you could run through a hallway, and then if you remove enemies' weapons, they walk more, They probably will get into Firewalker, and then its augment, which builds up damage as enemies burn in it. It would do a lot of damage, I guess. I don't know. I think this is already a good ability with a good augment. I don't necessarily think you have to do that, but Asymptomatic, you said mind control earlier, which you say for almost every frame, but that doesn't mean it. I chortle every time. I don't think this is a nonsensical idea, potentially. Is it time for Speen? What do you have in mind, Ragnavar? Tell me about the Speen. I shall once again bring up Spectre Rage for the carousel. Yes, I believe we talked about this previously, actually. I don't fully remember why, but on a previous time we discussed Loki, I put Spectre Rage on one of the slots. Bionic Me, if you want to pitch it to us again. I actually don't remember specifically. It looks like I did it in place of Decoy for reasons that escape me. Okay, Spectre Rage is a perfectly fine ability, sure. Spectre Siphon makes enemies that die within the mirrors drop an energy orb to 50% of the time. It's not affected by strength. You can dump strength and it doesn't go down, but building strength doesn't make it go up. But yeah, I don't really remember what the call to action was here. The number of mirrors on Spectre Rage scales with duration or range? Apparently range. Which you might well want a lot of anyway. Sure, that I'm sort of with it on that front. That makes sense enough. Spectre Rage makes melee enemies have to chase after the mirrors instead of shooting them. Yes, my brain was saying something about Radial Disarm, but I thought, won't they just stand on the outside and hit the mirrors? But the mirrors spin, so no, they will not. Yes, so it will be a kind of carousel where enemies will have to chase after mirrors that they probably won't be able to catch up to. And Bionic Me elaborates the more range, the more disarms, range of which the enemies are pulled into, and speed of the mirrors, because you get more mirrors the more range you have. Cool. Yeah, that's fun. I don't think you lose terribly much by getting rid of Decoy. And I bet past Zandy found this appealing because it's something that feels a bit unique to Loki. Again, like I said before, I personally feel like if you're looking for raw effectiveness, this frame is probably out as a whole. Like, you just wholesale disregard this Warframe. And so I'm much more interested in doing something that embraces their more unique utility, something that only they can do. And that is a moderately useful combination. I like that if the enemies following the mirrors count as being inside of Spectre Siphon, they would give you energy back to fuel this energy-hungry ass ability. Does this ability have duration? It does. It has very long duration, though. 40 seconds. I feel like you can drop a little bit of duration for efficiency, though, which I'm kind of keen to do. At the very least, streamline. Or would I just add this to this build? Quite possibly I would. Maybe cut this, add Spectre Rage there, Spectre Siphon here, which of course I'll just remake in this slot. So something like Energy Siphon, you know, Cursor Projection is fine. And then we're going to max range, which is what is on the other build. We're mostly just setting up the other build over here. Spectre Siphon, pow. Yep. And then I'm going to use Natural Talent because you're going to disarm a lot. And what am I missing? Streamline or Fleeting Expertise. Let's look at how the duration is if you do Fleeting Expertise. I removed Safeguard Switch, so that doesn't matter. So it would only be for the invisibility, but now it's really cheap and we have a lot of casting speed, so I personally don't mind that. And then Spectre Rage. It lasts 20.9 seconds. It will definitely run out of duration before you run out of 34 mirrors, unless you don't disarm enemies. And it only costs 30 energy now. You only have 40 energy for a Radial Disarm. That's nice. Yeah. Interesting. Pixel, you mentioned adding Rage to make enemies move faster and disarm them. That's interesting. I think my problem with Rage is you have to cast it a ton of times. You have to target, you know, little groups of enemies and cast them a lot. I've found the gameplay experience of that often not worthwhile, and enemies die so readily and run so fast with Nova's speed effect that I just don't find that compelling. But if you want to make a different version of a speed Nova build to speed up like defenses and stuff, yeah, this is an interesting idea for that. Enemies will run all the way to you because they don't have weapons to shoot you with, but not as many of them will be fast, probably. And you'd have to add Rage to the build. That's not a bad idea. That's cool. If you wanted more duration, you could replace Natural Talent with some duration, sure. and get cast speed from somewhere else. I kind of liked the double cast speed, but yeah, you know, Madurai is enough. I bet a lot of people would drop this, sure. I kind of like it, but yeah, it wouldn't be so bad to add more duration. 28% available. That's not bad. You go up to almost 30 seconds of duration. That's something. Oh, you know, Pixel, you're right. There is actually an augment for rage if you wanted to make enemies run to you a lot faster. There is that augment where it spreads. It has very low range, but you would have as much range as you could get, so that's something. Don't we have another range mod? Isn't one of the mods range and I just don't have it? It only gives you like 15%, but I don't know if I should really mention this at this point in Warframe's history, but there is actually a Loki helmet that gives you range. You get a tiny reduction to health. But yeah, if that's something you wish for, if that makes you happy, you can add, it's like 15% more range. Let's see. It's 15% more range. So I mean, don't you're not gonna be happy if you spend any meaningful amount of resources on this, but I do actually have it, so sure, that exists. 15 whole percent of range, indeed. Chat is overjoyed. We can finally retire. We have so much range. It'll be so easy to settle down and live in the countryside with all that range. It's just so much range. Oh yeah, if you were gonna do the rage thing, rage makes enemies move faster based on your strength, positive strength, and building that doesn't really make that much sense on Loki. It wouldn't do anything else for much else of his kit, and then you'd also be in this situation where uh, you, yeah, you're building all that range, all that strength, which means overextended is more punishing. Maybe we should make that build. I don't know. Uh, I'm enough of a fool to spend my resources on this. What would let's just put it together. Why not? We don't have anything else to talk about with Loki stuff. Let's do it after the break. We'll think a little bit about what ability you'd want to replace. We can kind of put some of the mods together now. It's better if we do it all at once, isn't it? But yeah, I don't think it's a completely nonsense idea to just look at what that would look like. It's an interesting build exercise. I just don't think it's going to be good. But, you know, who cares? I don't know. That's fine. This isn't that good either. Oh no, it's not going to be good. Whatever shall we do? Like, this is not either. So, you know what they say, Pixel Piranha says. If you can see your neighbor's house from your roof, they live too close. What? Okay. Today I learned some Pixel Piranha philosophy. I had a quick note that there's no elegant place to put about Arcane Arachne. This gives you 150% base damage for all of your weapons for 30 seconds when you wall latch. You only need to wall latch for like a split second. So you don't need Loki's wall latch duration for this. But this is a good arcane. There's not really a particular reason to use it on Loki. I wanted to highlight that maybe there isn't a particular reason to use it on Loki. We should talk about the proton set mods though. The big one is it's a primary mod, right? Because this is actually pretty sweet. Proton Jet gives a primary 120% crit and status. It's going to be a rifle while you're wall latching, and it does give you damage reduction while wall latching if you build more of this set. It is not bad. When you look at what this mod is giving you, I think it's important not to get carried away. If you care about the effectiveness, it's not that amazing. I mean, you're probably working with, your other critical mod is critical delay, so you get 200% crit chance, and then you're adding 120%. It's not amazing. It's, that's good. It's good, but it's not crazy. The weapon really better want that status chance. 120% is a lot. But personally, I think this is a pretty modest payoff. I wish this was more powerful. I feel like people don't wall latch anyway. You know, give people a big benefit if they wall latch. It's quite difficult to play a lot of the mission while wall latched, let alone players finding it fun. For the players that do find it fun, this is probably enough of a payoff, right? Like you were just going to wall latch anyway. Maybe it's fine. I don't know. But yeah, that's an interesting thing to note uh, for Loki. That is it's a payoff. Certainly, if you do wall latch, you might put the mod on. But I don't know. I'm personally not that excited by it. Yeah, we'll probably use this slot to build a that rage thing. Again, I'm not sure I'm actually going to use it, but I think it's an interesting one to talk about. I've got this idea where you could use the decoy augment that shares damage and safeguard switch to do some weird survivability stuff. I'm not sure that's going to be any good, but I'm kind of interested, so we're going to do it. But after the break, I think. Ace, you said, not sure how often it comes up for some people. Sometimes I helmet over the ability that's least ergonomic for my hands. For abilities I'd want to cast more than once, one is preferable. Infrequent abilities would ideally go in 4. Sometimes I get what I want, other times I redo my keybinds because a specific Warframe or helmet combo exists. Yeah, I definitely usually don't go that far, but I can relate. I have meaningful wrist pain, so I am the kind of person who would be up for not playing a playstyle because it hurts my hands. I don't know that I've ever actually built a frame to feel more ergonomic because of where the abilities are, but that's not a nonsense idea, no. I just haven't personally done that before. Yeah, I would highly recommend investing in a mouse with a few mappable macro buttons. That helps a lot with ergonomics. I'm not talking to asymptomatic, they've gone way beyond that already. Just in general, I think it's good. You only get one pair of hands, you got to take care of them. I'm actually currently in the midst of fiddling around with a pedal setup, like macro pedals, so I can step on things with my feet to do things, simply because I think arching your hand, like stretching your hand to a part of the keyboard, for me, that really hurts. That can be uncomfortable. So yeah, it might not matter for some people, but I don't think it's ever a bad idea to bring up ergonomics. It can mean lots of things. It could mean you just don't like how that ability feels, or you're adding an ability because you're going to use Loki in a mission type where you would run really far, but you don't want to hold down sprinting, so you build, bullet jump speed or something, But yeah, with that, let's take a break. And Relentless Zen with the legendary level timing. Thank you for the raid. That I hard to say if it's good or bad timing. We're at a natural transition point, so in that sense, it's good timing. How you doing? How was your stream? What's up? We were just talking about Loki. We're talking about Loki today, and we're at the part of the stream where I take a quick break and send you a little Q&A. You were playing D&D earlier. I'm very excited to play like a tabletop RPG kind of thing on stream. I think I mentioned before. I'm not sure how I would do it. I'm likely going to want to make a bot to manage it, and we're going to need to adapt the rules a little bit to make it sensible to play with chat. I'm not sure, but I'm very interested in the concept of mixing the role of dungeon master or game master and player, like having those duties be shared among the group. And that seems like a decent solution for Twitch. That's the beginning of my thoughts on it. Is you probably don't want to have, like, I'm not just going to be a player period or the game master period. That seems like not the right approach for me anyway. Anyway, it sounds cool. You said you had a chat-controlled character last campaign. Yeah, another thing that I think is very sensible is you could just run a campaign normally. You record you and your friends, your playgroup, playing D&D, but there is also another player that is group controlled by chat. That's not a bad idea for an approach. I think a lot of people are worried that chat is going to kind of run away with this scenario. of the campaign, which I actually don't, I'm not that bothered by. Like, that's sort of the point for me. And we here, anyway, have developed a very intimate community. You all have definitely established a social precedent that we're trying to, have a serious conversation. We have fun, we screw around, but, if somebody came in and tried to destroy the campaign for shiggles, I imagine that wouldn't really work, or it wouldn't be that harmful. We don't have to worry about that much in my Twitch chat. Yeah, I'm interested in that. So yeah, it sounds cool. Relentless End, I'm have nowhere near the free time to play with you now, but it's nice that you invited me. Definitely at some point. It's not like I don't want to, but I don't have anywhere near enough time to do that right now. I will hope to be able to say yes in the future. That being said, I'm pretty interested in that chat controlled character thing. I'll have to think about my own system and then maybe compare it, take a look at it yourself, take a look at what you did yourself. Pingers, you said, for the group player controlled by chat idea, have you heard about the Fishblade joke system? I don't know what that is. You should DM me about it. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you. If you feel like that's related, you all give pretty targeted recommendations. You listen to me talk for hours every week. I have received some very, very good recommendations, better than my friends give me recommendations. My friends are closer to me in other ways, but they don't spend as much time hearing me talk about video games. So I love it when you all take the time to write me recommendations like that. That's great. Please do. That's awesome. A couple quick thank yous before we do our break and then get back to talking about Loki. Gonna make a bit of a hot mess next time. Audio Forces, Mimeo, and Ragnavar, thank you for the subs. Thanks for supporting the show. This is my job, and if you didn't support me this way, I would have to stop. So thank you very much. You are literally making it possible, and this is one of my major goals in my young life, so it means a lot to me that you're helping me make it possible. And thanks to all the new follows. I think I saw Gayatris, who followed while I was offline, I want to say, or maybe just toward the very end of the stream we did on Monday. Thank you very much. Hope you're lurking away, and a few others. We actually got a lot of new people on that Monday stream that were really great. So if you're lurking away, if you came back to check out the stream today, thanks. I hope you're enjoying it. And if you have any questions, you're not as familiar with Warframe, I'm happy to talk about that stuff too. I'm more than happy. You'd be surprised. Probably other people have the same question. Hoopkins, you said maybe ask Joey. He may have some ideas. He's good at that kind of stuff. Joey and I have talked about this before. Joey is good at that kind of thing. He's developed a couple of chat plays a game like systems and has almost done the thing that I'm referring to, where chat has some system by which they are co-DM and character, like player character, for a tabletop RPG kind of thing, a role-playing thing. But I've decided that I do want to make it myself. I am already working on learning some Python. I've been stalling on that for too long. In college, I took like a couple random courses on programming, so I don't have no experience, and I'm good at learning that kind of thing, but I am pretty much starting from scratch. So I don't want to get you too excited. It's not going to be super soon, but I am starting to work on it now. So I will make it myself, and it will be made, it will be done. But when, I don't know. I really don't know. I have a very close friend, probably my oldest friend, is a very, very advanced career programmer. So I do have a guide as well, which is going to help a lot when you're just trapped and you cannot figure out why code isn't working. It's really invaluable to have someone to bounce off, like, what am I doing wrong, please? Like, the human brain starts to miss a thing and they'll look at the code and find something immediately, Once you've exhausted your own ability to find that thing, it's invaluable to have someone else to help. So he will be getting a lot of credit whenever I complete whatever I complete. But yeah, I'm going to start by learning Python, and we'll go from there. Cool. With that, I will talk to you all in a few minutes. Hello, welcome back to my Twitch ARRchive Parley segment, part of the show where I hit the restroom and entertain you all by answering a few questions during today's show. This one is from Asymptomatic, who asked for thoughts on magazine sizes. You say weapon uptime is a subjective stat in a world of percentage-based holstered reloads, like in Warframe. You can often just store your weapon to reload it. So what exactly a weapon's magazine size means can vary. It might mean how much time you need to spend reloading for how much magazine size you have, how long you can shoot versus how long you reload. But you can reload other ways than the reload time, so it depends. Ace continues, rifles that sport 80 or 100 plus magazines without the fire rate to chew through them feel particularly bloated. Alt fires and augments have sort of addressed having stagnant bullets at the bottom of a magazine, though that places a lot of trust in the underslung grenade launcher or what have you. In this part, I think Ace is referring to the idea that you can use alternate firing modes, or there are some augments that make you consume multiple rounds of ammunition at once in Warframe. The idea being if a magazine is really big and we can reload them really fast, why is there even a magazine? Sort of. We've gotten to the point in Warframe where our ability to refresh our magazine is so powerful that it isn't a very limiting restriction. And so having ways to spend those bullets, because after all, bullets unspent is damage undone, that can be really fun. So yeah, it's an interesting piece of design. You know, most games don't do this the way I see it. Usually a magazine size is used in a shooting game as a way to create rhythm. The player has a certain cadence at which the weapon is used. The weapon is balanced by needing to reload really often or whatever. And indeed, very small magazine sizes in Warframe do still do that, because you need to stop and do something else to get the reload. Maybe you just swap off the weapon and keep fighting, but you are swapping off that weapon. You know, there is at least some stop. If the weapon is a really big magazine and a really long reload, but we can easily bypass it, there really isn't any meaningful downtime for the weapon. So the whole mechanic of a magazine size is kind of weird, unless there's then another way to spend that magazine. And there are weapons like this in Warframe. But indeed, it would be interesting. It's fun how in Warframe there's some really hard or very objective or abstract ways to increase your damage, like damage, the base damage of the weapon, multi-shot, elemental damage, and etc. And then there's some more subjective ways to increase your damage. They might not be a damage increase depending on how you harness them. Things like reload speed or fire rate or magazine size, potentially. Even stuff like accuracy or the ability to get projectile flight speed. These are things that may or may not give you more damage depending on how you play, basically. Some of them are available in the Weapon Excellence slot because they don't make you do any more damage than you would have if you played differently. They just let you do that same damage like more of the time or whatever, which is an interesting aspect of Warframe's design. There's a lot of different ways to increase your damage. The problem is just that so many of them are so much better than others. I'd be very interested if in Warframe, reload and magazine mechanics and stuff and fire rate were really heavily buffed so that mathematically they were basically the best ways to increase your damage, as long as the weapon's mechanics and your playstyle play along. But they're not most of the time. Generally, the best mathematical increase, even if you assume that it isn't an inconvenience to reload the weapon or manage your magazine, the best mathematical increases are generally things that are just damage, which is a lot less interesting, I think. It'd be cool if the game let you very extremely modify your fire rate, but you know your magazine will run dry and then you'll have to reload. Generally, it doesn't matter that this is the case in Warframe, simply because the mods that don't care about how big your magazine is necessarily already give you more damage than the ones that do, and so that's just an additional drawback on top of them already not being as big of a damage increase, which is kind of a shame. But Warframe definitely does some pretty interesting stuff with magazines, and I think more ways to spend bullets is a fun idea. In general, looking at a game and saying what resource isn't spent that much by the game's design, maybe we should offer more ways to spend it. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, for example, hit dice are a good example of this, and you can actually see the designers adding more ways to spend hit dice in recent updates to Dungeons and Dragons, all controversy there aside. It's not that I'm looking at those materials very seriously. Anyway, but this was a cool question. Thanks for asking. Folks, if you want to provide something for me to talk about during the breaks each stream, you can do so using a link I'm posting in chat right now, or if you're watching this as an archive, it's linked in the description. Thanks for that. I'll answer those the next time I stream on a Thursday. For now, on with the show. And a few other quick thank yous to other folks for supporting the show. to Free William for being my recent patron. Free William, you've been supporting the channel with a bit of financial support for quite a while, and I really appreciate that. You were gone for a while and came back, and it's been a long time. You're one of the longest term supporters, so thank you very much. You quite literally made it possible for me to be doing this today. And Ace, you very recently made it possible by tipping me $212.16. Literally paying the bills there, so thank you very much. That makes a huge difference. I was actually just managing that with my bank today, so thank you very much. That it really did make a big difference. And back down we go. Ace, you were adding to the question you asked. You said Warframe is largely a more of what you have game, so weapons with tight magazines don't expand much. The most bloated magazines don't need that support. Absolutely. I think a big pitfall with Warframe is that weapons are able to kind of maintain their identity despite your ability to mod them freely, because almost everything in Warframe multiplies what the weapon already has. The problem with that is that mods then become useless on weapons that aren't already good at that thing. For some things like critical chance, yeah, you get a good amount of critical chance if the weapon has relatively good base crit chance. But there are other things like magazine capacity where those mods usually feel pretty pointless, because if the weapon doesn't have a good magazine size, it doesn't gain enough from magazine capacity mods for them to matter. And if the weapon has a good magazine capacity, then you wouldn't use a magazine capacity mod because you already have enough of a magazine. And it's easy to reload anyway, and so yeah, that definitely isn't the high point for that part of Warframe's design, at least not in my opinion. But what are you gonna do? It could be cool to see. Yeah, Poopkins, you said negative ammo efficiency. That's a fun idea. Yeah, absolutely. Another fun thing to add. Right on. Cool. Let's make that other build then, I think. I'll split again. And yeah, it's gonna be a mess, but that's fine. I became intrigued by this. Okay, so here's the original idea. You could use rage. You can always use rage to make enemies run faster. Rage causes enemies to take more damage by a lot if you shoot them, but they also move and attack faster. Enemies attacking faster is scary. That's bad, but it does make them move a lot faster and attack faster, and they take way more damage. It's affected by strength, so they take even more damage from you, and they run and shoot even more fast if you build positive range. So Pixel, I believe Pixel, earlier you suggested using this with Radial Disarm. Big range, and you'll want the range. We'll talk about why in a sec anyway for rage. And then you'll build some duration and a bunch of strength. Enemies will run to you really fast, but they don't have guns, so it's not very dangerous that they shoot faster. And they'll run all the way to you because they don't have guns. They'll have to melee you. So that could be a powerful way to speed up some types of missions. People usually do this with defense missions. It's not bad on top of the much more common version of this as well, which is to bring Nova, built for negative strength, who can make enemies go faster. It's not like this would be redundant with that. It kind of makes it better in that you can take away enemies' weapons and you can make them move even faster. So not bad, and no one else is going to be playing this build. So let's make something with it, because I actually think there's a nice little interaction. I want switch teleports still. I'm not sure you need invisibility. I think I'm going to get rid of invisibility. I'll explain why in a sec. And then let me just feed my helmet for its hard work. Glorious. Okay, so my idea when you said that earlier was to give yourself damage reduction in the most janky way possible. Deceptive Bond. So we talked about this a little bit before. Damage that you take goes to your decoy. Damage your decoy takes goes to you. Strength makes it more extreme. Let's get it to 100% first. And I'm going to use Common Frenzy, which is the augment for rage, which makes it spread. We'll talk about that later. Let's get it to a lot of strength first. So we'll just run, how much do you need? Quite a bit. I don't know if I want blind rage. I just need to build a bunch of strength. I don't love that, but what are you gonna do? Yeah. So we won't worry about it for now, but we're probably gonna have to get strength from a bunch of weird places to make it fit good. Again, not the end of the world right this second. Growing power, that should be fine. Okay. Deceptive Bond, when you have growing power, will now share 100% of damage you take to your clone, 100% of damage your clone takes to you. If you then use that with Safeguard Switch, what I'm hoping will happen is that you swap with your clone is invulnerable. Any damage you take goes to your clone, which is invulnerable. Any damage your clone takes goes to you, which will be 0 damage because your clone is invulnerable. So for the duration of Safeguard Switch, you are unkillable. And we can just build a lot of duration, and then you'll just be unkillable all the time. That's a thing. And then from there, we will bootstrap some range, and we would already need some strength to make enemies run faster. We'd want it. It'll make enemies take more damage. The duration is already okay on this ability at base. Rest and Rage's duration is already pretty good. So we don't need too much duration for that. We would really just want it for Safeguard Switch. It's not the end of the world. We could just recast it as long as we have good efficiency. It's going to be a balancing act, so let's play around a little bit. I want Streamline, but we need a lot of range. I want max range. It's going to be hard to get that with the strength. I want as much range as I can get. We'll talk about why, but it's basically because of this augment. Common Frenzy. This augment makes Rest and Rage spread. The duration is not big. It's in fact small. It is it is how you say terrible. It's not that bad. Right now it's at about 12 meters radius. Not terrible, just not great. Now why can't we just be durable using invisibility? You could do that. I just thought it was a fun idea to see, we're going to build strength anyway. We're going to build a little bit of duration. We're not going to have negative duration anyway. Why not make some kind of durability combo? And in the first place, why would you even play any of these builds if you wanted something that was more powerful? Again, it's okay to just mess around and have a bit of fun with it. It's not intended to, we're not curing cancer here. But the stats, as you can see, the stats are quite squeezed. It's going to be very difficult when the build almost requires 3 augments to get a good mix of stats. So we're going to have to pick and choose a little bit. The build literally doesn't work unless we get enough strength, so we have to prioritize getting that done. Duration can theoretically be dropped, but we got to be careful it doesn't get too low, or Safeguard Switch is going to become kind of impractical. Like, you'll have to use it basically all the time or you'll die. So I don't want it too low, not lower than this. And the efficiency can't be too low because you're going to need to cast a lot of stuff. You certainly need to cast Switch Teleport a lot of times, right? So I don't want to get rid of Streamline. This build is probably not going to have casting speed. You can see it's pretty strangled. So we're going to have to drop range, I guess. I guess overextended coming off frees you up quite a bit. And then if you had more capacity, you could run primed continuity and some strength there, and you'd get to 200% strength. Densora, you said, I'm confused how Deceptive Bond is helping Safeguard Switch. Both you and the decoy are invulnerable, if I understood correctly. No. Safeguard Switch doesn't make you invulnerable. It only makes what you swap with invulnerable. Swap with an enemy for 3 seconds invulnerability, right. But if you swap with an ally, you don't get the invulnerability. Thank you for asking that. That's an important clarification. You could just swap with enemies all the time. You can do that. I suppose that would help the build have a lot more space, wouldn't it? The only thing that's good about this is you get a taunt. So yeah, that is kind of a non-bow. And then you could just be invisible. So, well, that's why it's fun to get into it a little bit, isn't it? Yeah, you could just be swapping with enemies, and then you save a mod slot, which this build really wants, and yeah. But anyway, certainly a thing if you don't want to be invisible all the time, but you have to sacrifice a lot. It's going to be very convoluted to play. Peters, thanks for the follow. How you doing? What's up? We're talking about Loki today. Just build playstyle stuff for Loki, interesting optimization stuff if you're interested in that. So if you have any way you enjoy Loki, I would love to hear about it. Loki is not a frame that I love. I did play a lot of Loki in my earlier time playing Warframe, but I haven't in a while. Found him to be very useful. But yeah, we made a kind of Spectre Siphon, Spectre Rage carousel thing earlier. If you disarm enemies, they have to race around following the mirrors. They can't just hit one because the mirrors spin. So if you use Radial Disarm with Spectre Rage, enemies have to run in a circle chasing the mirrors forever, which is a silly and uniquely somewhat powerful thing, and then you can get more energy with Spectre Siphon from them. Not bad, kind of silly, but not bad if that's something you want to do. Certainly plays into Loki's unique strengths with Radial Disarm. And I was interested in this idea of disarming enemies and then you speed them up with Rage. I made this convoluted thing where if you get Deceptive Bond to enough strength, you don't take any damage when you take damage. The decoy takes all the damage. Decoy takes damage, you take all the damage. If you then safeguard switch with the decoy, you give the decoy invulnerability. That means that if you take damage, you don't take any damage, the decoy takes all the damage, but it doesn't because it's invulnerable. If the decoy takes damage, well, it doesn't because it's invulnerable, which means that if you have this at 100%, so you get a bunch of strength, and then you use Safeguard Switch on the decoy, you are both indestructible for the duration of Safeguard Switch, and you could just keep casting this. It doesn't do that much in the end, because the duration of the invulnerability you normally get from this if you just swap with an enemy is 3 seconds. All you've done is make the duration of the invulnerability longer in exchange for an augment slot, and you've got to build a bunch of strength now, and it's a mess. I don't think that's really worth it, but I thought it was kind of interesting to talk through. I really like talking through how you'd make a thing work in a build without there being like an actionable reason why you would do that. For me, it doesn't have to be because it's necessarily useful. It could just be an interesting mental exercise, probably fairly obviously because I do this for a living. This build, I don't have the capacity, but you'd want more strength to make sure that Deceptive Bond thing works, but there's not really a reason to do that. Just could be kind of interesting. I guess technically you gain duration on Safeguard Switch, but you could run a duration mod in this slot if you didn't do it that way. So it doesn't actually accomplish anything. Probably when we play Loki on the stream next week, my plan is to do a gameplay stream of some of the stuff that we build if I'm excited about any of it the following week, and then have that linked at the end of the YouTube archive as well for people that want it. So if you decide you want to see this, we'll probably play it next week and I'll connect that. If you're watching this just as it comes out, you might have to wait a bit. We'll probably play this. This seems fun. You know, it'll work, of course. All it does is make enemies run in a circle, and you know, with Radial Disarm and you're invisible. It's just Loki, but with like a bit more of a compelling payoff. So this is a fun idea. Bionic Me, thank you very much for bringing this back up again after we talked about Loki previously a while ago. I think the remaining thing to do is to move on to fashion. Now, I am not, how you say, a Loki enjoyer as far as gameplay. I have very broad taste. I think that is one of my strengths as a creator for this type of thing. I'm not that picky in terms of like what kind of game I like. Genre doesn't really mean anything to me. If the game is just good, is how I see it. I have enjoyed games of basically every genre. I've enjoyed many different kinds of play styles. I'm not too picky about that stuff. But I don't find Loki the most exciting most of the time to play. Fashion wise, I've always thought the Knave skin was like, it's going down. Like, welcome to the gladiatorial combat pit, the blood sport of fashion frame. This is that hardcore fashion frame skin. We need to take this off. Look at this skin. I mean, what are you even supposed to do? I don't know. To me, it was just like, ooh, what mad person designed, look at all the metallic. It's the most metallic. What are these patterns? What is the zoning? Why is it all these big chunks? And yet, I emerged victorious with this objectively beautiful fashion that nobody dislikes. Witness the power of my fashion framing abilities. The sheer awesome power of my Mirage Oniro Noble Animation, Agile Animation set appearance, where his posture makes it less overwhelming that there's all the metallic. Witness the sheer wrath of my ability to mix 3 different years of Tennokan armor because I'm part of the Warframe creator program. Yeah, this is the Loki fashion that I like. It's it's a color of green. It is one of the colors ever made. Let's okay, there's a flaw. Let's start getting into it a little bit. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, I think the challenge of this stupid skin is that it's got all of the metallic. It has, do you want metallic on your skin? How much metallic do you want? Yes, that is how much metallic I want. I want the yes amount of metallic. I despise Loki's normal prime skin. It's not like bad. Designer who made this, please just ignore me. I have the opposite of broad tastes when it comes to fashion. I have very specific tastes that many people disagree with. But it's this chunk. I just can't get behind it. Like, I know that it's like he's got a toga thing or like a robe or something over this part. Probably that's what that's meant to be. Like, that's fine. Like, from a general design language perspective, that's fine, but I just hate it. Like, I just have a problem, I guess, and I hate it. I can't do it. I like the back. I don't like the tonfa arms. The melee weapon blade arms. I could, but I just don't. It's not an uncool idea. He's a ninja frame in a ninja game, but I just have a problem, I guess, and I just don't like it. And so if you're asking, Zandy, but why are you building with this skin? Because it has too much of the metallic, and you just said that was a huge problem. The answer is because I must. It must be done. I am held at gunpoint by this skin to make that skin look that way. Same shape language still happens here. Normal Loki, there's no escape. There's no escape from this chunk. I don't know why. Again, maybe other people are higher beings, unlike myself, and they are not bothered by that. But I am not an enlightened one, and I just can't do it. The body change of this skin is like, I need it. I need that. And so here it is. I've always loved his weird diamond hammerhead shark helmet. The Loki helmets, on the other hand, I am down. Like, baby, are you down? Yes. Like, all the helmets, they're so distinct. He's a shark. It's a shark head. He's a mollusk, or that's not a mollusk, but you know, he's squid man. He is fish man. A lot of Tenno design language in Warframe is based on like sea life motifs. The ships, like the orbiter, the default orbiter, has kind of a sea creature-esque motif. And a lot of the early Warframe designs really lean into that a lot too. I love that with Loki's helmets. It's so weird, but I really enjoy them. Look at this one. I haven't actually looked at this one before. I don't hate that one. This is the one from Twitch. Here's the one that comes with the Loki Knave skin by default. Now, I personally feel like this it takes it over the line. It makes balance challenging, which is why I went for something a little bit different. It blends pretty nice, though, don't you think? It gives him a bit of an insect head, insect fish looking thing, which I like paired with the rest of his. Crazy textures. And remember, you're just going to be looking at his butt the whole time anyway. Now, some problems. I also really like having the neon green, not exactly neon green, but kind of like body paint from a rave look and wrap around the two swords, especially because I'm often not going crazy with melee weapons on Loki. That's just not what I prefer. But unfortunately, the way that this Syandana works, this color that influences the text, see that? It's also up here and down here on the blade as a metallic. So there's really nothing you can do. It's gotten much more common. Oh, it's also here. It's gotten much more common for Warframe cosmetics to not do this, like to have a place where they're metallic and not metallic in recent years. But this is a very old Tenogen cosmetic. I still really like it. I just kind of try not to notice that part, but it looks jade, I guess you could think of it that way. Kind of jade looking-esque thing. And then all the Tenokon pieces. I think this covers up a lot of the excessive oogly boogly patterns on the chest, makes it a little less overwhelming. I'll take it off so you can see what I mean. I just think it's a bit much. I don't love that. And it blends pretty well. You get that little bit of text there, right? I think that's nice. And then the leg pieces. His legs are asymmetrical themselves. You get a little bit more of a whoosh here. And then this side is a little more tame. So I put a little bit more of a whoosh here. And then this one is a little more tame. On the other hand, I liked this shoulder piece and this one, but I chose to just not cover up as much of the arm here. I might swap these. I feel like I want this over there to make it less overwhelming. Let's do that and see. See, I prefer that, I think. I'm not sure I want that one there now. Let's look at we got to keep the Tenokon ones. Maybe not, but I will consider it. See, just having that little bit of gray there helps contrast that a little bit, I think. And it kind of fits with the idea that there's got this kind of cuff here. See that little cuff bit? There's like a round portion on its hand. I don't know, I think I prefer that. I think I'll keep them swapped. We could look at the other ones. Yeah, this one kind of goes the other way. I don't despise that, but I'm going to say no. I don't like it with this. Anyway, I love mixing and matching sets of armor and skins with different helmets and stuff. I just think that's fun. Creates some very unique appearances that often make people say, what Warframe am I looking at? Which is kind of a pleasure of mine as a visual designer. Even though that's vaguely malicious, but there you go. Maybe not a great habit for a career creator to have, but I sure have it. And then you get little bits of metallic on this set as well. I think it adds a lot. I kind of want them to be brighter. You can't notice them that much, you know? Like, what if we just brighten it? That looks a lot better, I think. Don't you think? It kind of matches the metallic that's already on the sword, too. Maybe not that bright. Yeah, like that. Instead of this might be a bit much. I don't know. I certainly like it a bit brighter. But yeah, having that splash of metallic, not too much, but you get a little bit. It's kind of like how some frames already have little bits of metallic. Now, we can't talk about this skin without talking about the rogue femur. You can see that on the knave skin right here. See that little organ guy there? See that thing there? What are you doing there? What's that little guy doing there? I think there's another one like on his... There's like one other weird little piece. Yeah, see right here. There's like a lung. A little lobe of a lung chilling back there. You see that in there? What is this? What is this rogue creature? Now, because of my helmet, it does actually influence a lot of the top as well. But we could play with that. We could try to make it something weird. You can't easily make it a metallic because that on the head it's not metallic. I'm going with my thing again where I think grayscale, it's a lot less noticeable when something is and isn't a metallic on different parts of the skin. Like, for example, if you tried to do gold, you see it just looks weird on the head. to me at least. That's just too much. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know what you do with these. I chose to make them dark, as you can see, but I don't know. Orange, okay. I wish you wouldn't, but chat says orange. Oh, good lord. Okay. Yeah, the little you see it's like a little liver, a little spleen. I'm not very good at anatomy, so it might not look like those things, but it isn't, I don't know. I'll remember that till the day I die. Whoever made that in there, tell me your ways. Why? Why have you done this? Like, what? Teach me your methods. Like, I must know. Why is it there? Strikes me as an intestine. Right, yeah, like a weird intestine or like a long boy appendix. There you go. Make sure you said, speaking of metallics, I do hope they do a pass at some point to unify the metallic channels on armor and Syndonas, etc. At least if they still refuse to just roll out Void Shell for everything. I think they probably will roll out Void Shell for most things, as long as it's doing well. I agree, it would be really nice, I think, to unify metallics. Certainly, I feel like some players, myself included, would strongly consider coming back to appearances, warframes, maybe even buy other cosmetics if they were, if they had their metallic channels updated. But it would be a lot of work because Warframe has so many cosmetics. So I'm not hopeful, I'm not optimistic that they'll do that. But I agree, I would love it. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I just really wanted to talk about this weird little spleen. Again, if you were to swap the helmet to the knave helmet, then the little friend would, it just doesn't show that much on that helmet anywhere that I can see. So you can make it whatever you want. You can make it, what I did originally was, it was a little gold. He's got a little orc and organ in there. You could do something a little bit darker. It's not even that noticeable. It doesn't even add that much because it's just so subtle, but like that adds some metallic cohesion. You see what I mean? Like it's kind of nice. Is it nice enough that I want this helmet? I guess I could leave it like that and just switch through a few helmets. There might be some of them on which it's a metallic, or this one where I don't think it's that. This is kind of metallic. Like it's not that unnoticeable, but it blends okay, I guess. This one, it's all right. That's like a forgivable, it maybe even is or looks enough like a metallic, right? And this is the one that gives you more range too, so yeah, I mean, I used this helmet for a long time. These little guys up here are vaguely metallic-y, but again, I can just barely look past it. I just care about that a lot. I know lots of people probably just don't and are thinking, what's the big deal? This one, it's just too much. Like that, oh, it's not, it ain't good. And the Prime helmet, you can see that the channel that is the green lines on the skin is the metallic channel for the Prime helmet. So yeah, I don't know. That puts me on the Arcane Swindle helmet. There you go. There it is. Oh, we got to put the skin back. The stance back. The copper spleen has emerged victorious at long last. After millennia, I am free. There it is. Black energy for invisibility, being invisible if you care about that. Or just not like bright lights. I think this is a pretty okay frame for that, where you don't really need to see any of the things. Yeah, there he is. The only thing we didn't talk about are weapons. Well, we talked about them a little bit. So weapons that are already silenced. Yeah, we should head into the end bit. Yeah, I didn't have anything to say, or not much to say anyway, about weapons that are not just silenced innately, like bows. I again don't really care that much about silenced weapons personally, so it's not a topic I know a ton about. The Quasis was a cool recommendation for like the knife throwing. Another thing that you might be interested in for wall latch type gameplay would be a Zaw that fires projectiles. I've made a couple variants of this, but what I'm referring to is Exodia Epidemic, or sorry, Exodia Contagion. And there's a few other weapons that do something similar. The Vitrica, the glass sword, you know what I'm talking about? There's a couple other weapons like that. Maybe, I don't know if it really matters that much that you'd be wall latching, but it's a thought. I don't know. I think for a lot of people, yeah, it might just be thematic weapons with Loki, or a way to kill the enemies that will be grouped up because you radial disarmed them. Something like that. I'm kind of keen. I really like how this stance looks with bows. So yeah, I'll probably try the Proboscis Cernos. Should we recolor it a little bit for him? I love this weapon. I think it's cool. Just the appearance too. Oh, these crazy bows. This crazy compound bow. Or I don't know that much about bows. This isn't a compound bow, is it? But it's got like the sight and stuff on it. I got confused because I'm not a bow aficionado. Yeah, like that, but like do it better though. Just make it a little bit less ugly is the change I want to that. It's good, but hideous. And if you could just make it not as ugly, that would be good. Can you do that for me, Loki? Can you do that? Yeah. I'll play with it in a mission and see how I feel. You can't recolor these still, right? That sure is some noodly appendage. Yeah, that sure is some noodles on a bow. Cool. I think that's all I have to say. Chat, any closing thoughts? We've done well. Ace, earlier you said, I need a little more shape language from Loki than I currently get. The thrown secondaries and some dual pistols sit real nice on the hips. Indeed, I'm not so into, like, shown when holstered fashion, but this Loki appearance at least, and the normal one as well. I think, yeah, like, showing, like, a thrown weapon while holstered is a fun idea. Let's just do that quickly. I like, the Agrit, for example. We could... There's a lot of thrown weapon skins. I'm not setting up the metallic, but we can just see. See that in his thighs? That's kind of nice. Adding some gear down there. I also think that adds to the utility. See, that's kind of cool. Your utility ninja feel that can be kind of fun. So yeah, I'm kind of into it for this frame. I know some people really like the Tonfa Sayandana stuff, which I'm not the most into. But yeah, cool. A shout out to that for sure. And you could cover the that little swoop on the prime appearance that I didn't like if you wanted. Darkboar, welcome back. You caught us right at the end. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sorry I missed you. That was Loki week. I hope that my approach to it this time was more fun, a little bit more intentional than it was before. I hope you liked it. If you have any feedback about it, actually now would be a good time, but you can certainly tell me whenever. And yeah, we'll be live as normal most Thursdays, Fridays, Sundays.
Man, I have been here for years, I just kid. Zandy, hope you and your health is doing well. Always love your work, as always much appreciated. Keep it up, but look after yourself first. Just care about you. Winking face, thumbs up.
Wow, the text-to-speech really nailed it with the no hesitation, winking face, thumbs up. Bam. Nailed it. Text-to-speech is on the ball today. Red Drone, thank you for the tier 1 sub for 6 months. Welcome back. You caught me right at the end of the show, but thank you very much for the support. Yeah, it's going okay. We've got plenty to do, but I'm very glad these are starting up again. The Bootleg Builds channel, which is where the archives for these go. People watching this on YouTube know that, but people watching the stream maybe don't. Where the timestamped version goes. This will be up the day after it goes live. As a Twitch partner, I have a 24-hour exclusivity contract. So when I stream something on Twitch, I'm meant to not put it anywhere else for 24 hours. So that's not a hard rule to obey, so I do, and I'm supposed to, or they can make me not a Twitch partner anymore. It's not really a big deal for me, but that's something you should be aware happens. So yeah, there's no rush. It has to wait a little bit. Um, but yeah, these will be going up again, and I have a lot of stuff I want on that bootleg builds channel. So yeah, thanks for supporting the show. A lot of you already subscribe on Twitch, but yeah, some of you are also patrons. A few of you are actually YouTube members, and I give the same benefits for all those things. So whichever one you want to do is fine. I get less money from Twitch subs, but it gives you more benefits. You get, the ad-free viewing and stuff. So you should do the one you like. But yeah, I really appreciate it. This is my job, so that's how I get paid. Thank you very much. Certainly think about it. If there's stuff you want added to these. But yeah, otherwise business as usual. We'll probably play a bit of that Loki carousel thing next week. It'll probably just be like a we play and hang out and talk stream, just also featuring some of that gameplay. It's not meant to be a major release. We're kind of taking 1 week on, 1 week off with doing these very focused build streams. We'll just be talking about builds in general, but I do think it's nice to provide a little gameplay of that too. Ragnavar, you said, what's in the docket for the Friday stream this week? We're going to do a little bit more build making in Nova Drift. Nova Drift is a game that a couple of games like it have this quality where you can kind of make a build that has more or less things you do, like not just more or less buttons to press, but more or less buttons you could press. In Warframe, you have 4 abilities. You may or may not press them a lot. Nova Drift, you can make a build that might not even have those 4 things, or you add, a button that you manipulate, or you automate some aspect. You don't shoot your weapon manually, stuff like that. And I'm quite interested in that topic, so I wanted to dig into builds that add a lot of stuff to that, that give you more to do, make the gameplay more active, I guess. Not that it isn't active enough or something. Anyway, so I was hoping to tackle that with all of you tomorrow. I hope you find that interesting. That's a game you should be able to follow along with pretty well if you haven't seen it before. It might be a cool recommendation if you like making builds and you want something to contrast to Warframe a little bit. And yeah, Monday we'll do our usual build stuff in Genshin Impact as usual. I'll talk to you all very soon then. Thanks for the great stream.